Hey Jim, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, Ralph. How are you?
Well, I'm good, except our listeners should know that we're a little low on coffee today because we have a boil water advisory in our town. They somehow or other added too much or too little of something to the water treatment system, and we're not supposed to drink the water.
Well, okay. Is this a short-term kind of a thing?
3 days, they said.
All right. Well,
So fortunately, they are still selling us bottled water, whiskey, beer, and wine. just, just to let you know that we're not going to die of thirst.
okay. Well, that's an advantage that I have then, Ralph, of living in the country because
Yeah,
my
your
water comes from a hole in the ground.
your well water is not contaminated by whatever they didn't add or did add to the water.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is Psychology Takeaway, where we try and look at things that are relevant in the field of psychology and relevant to you, our listeners. And right now we're in a series on pain. Yes, I know we give people a lot of pain sometimes.
Sometimes,
Yes.
yeah,
We looked at kind of what pain was in our first presentation. And then last week we looked at specific kinds of alternative therapeutic approaches. Everyone's pretty familiar with the medical ones, but they're not necessarily familiar with other approaches. So last week we looked at herbal therapy, aromatherapy, homeopathy, and the use of CBD oil. Today we're going to also be looking at some kind of interesting and perhaps little known among for some of you therapeutic approaches that are geared at or focused at pain. We're going to take a look today at reflexology, acupressure, um, the use of emu oil, and uh, macrobiotic dieting, macrobiotic eating. So,
yeah. And one of the things, Jim, that we said a couple of weeks ago that maybe is worth repeating for our listeners who might not have really picked it up is not everybody feels pain in exactly the same way. And some people, their nerves conduction might be exactly the same as another person, but their neurology in their brain is more sensitive to the signals. And so some people are, in fact, more sensitive to sensations of pain than others. And, so sometimes if people call you a wuss because you've had some minor injury and you say, oh, that really hurts, it may be that you're one of those people who are more sensitive than others. So you're not just a wuss, you actually do experience pain at a higher level.
okay. And we'll get to some of the actually some of the research on this. I'm going to start with reflexology. And reflexology might sound weird at the beginning because it's the use of pressure and or oils on certain parts of either the feet, the hands, or the ears. Now, I mean, what's going on here? Well, the idea is that your left foot controls or influences the left side of your body and all of the organs over there on the left side, and your
Okay.
right foot influences or controls the organs on the right side of the body. Now think of it this way. I know that the appendix is on the right side of the body because I happen to have an appendix scar, which I got many years ago. Okay? Now, the if I had a pain in the appendix area, and I did as a 10-year-old, the way of approaching the pain was to take me to the Plummer Hospital up in the Sioux and take out the appendix.
Okay.
Okay, now,
Seems reasonable. Yeah. You've
yeah,
got something hurting. It's inflamed. Take it out.
yeah, almost killed me though as a 10-year-old, which is kind of interesting. I did not realize it until a few years later. I was talking to my parents that this relatively simple operation hadn't gone all that well, and I was in very serious condition for quite a few days. Thank heavens, penicillin had been invented, or antibiotics had been invented, but they were relatively new, and I was treated with them. Well, I don't know if a reflexologist would attempt to treat appendix pain, but they might. And if they did, the treatment would focus on something that's going on in the right
Right foot. Yeah. Okay.
or perhaps right hand. And I think when we put up the Learn More, there's a little map there that shows up, and it shows where the points are on the feet that correspond to various organs of the body. For example, there's an area in the ball of the foot that corresponds to the lungs.
Okay.
There's an area on the big toe, both the right and left big toe, that corresponds to the brain. Now, I think a lot of people who are reflexologists would say that the approach is a good approach and it works well in conjunction with more conventional therapies.
Okay. Yeah.
But there was a study done in Denmark, which is kind of an interesting study, specifically about the use of reflexology. In Scandinavian countries, they do things a little bit differently, or a lot differently than we do here. For example, providing child care at the corporation, for mothers or fathers. Much more, as we pointed out a long time ago, much more time off for vacation so that you can get rejuvenated. Well, one of the things that they did was to hire people who practiced reflexology
Okay.
with employees, and so in general, reflexology is good to relieve stress, to relieve inner conditions of maybe anxiety, but it's also targeted at things like cancer and diabetes, asthma, headaches, PMS. I mean, it's a lot of different things. So here's the setup. The corporation hires these reflexologists, and then they look to see what the results are compared to when they didn't have reflexologists.
Okay.
Okay, and one of the things that corporations like to measure is money. Money saved. Okay, and in this particular case, there was a significant reduction in the amount of sick leave or absenteeism, and subjectively, the employees reported that they had just greater life satisfaction and satisfaction with their jobs after only 6 reflexology sessions. So is it a placebo that we have going on here? Who knows? We should have had a double-blind study, and they're coming that way.
Yeah.
But anecdotally, at least in Denmark, the payoff for the use of reflexology seems to be pretty high. So we've got these points in the ears, the hands, the feet. And suppose you're experiencing stress and anxiety, and you don't have time to take off your shoes, Ralph. A reflexologist would work with your earlobes.
Okay.
So there you go. So that's it.
Well, that leads to an interesting question, Jim, because for 100 years, women, and today increasingly many men, have ear or two. I wonder what a reflexologist would say about the process of getting a pierced ear. Yes, no, maybe. Should it be done? Shouldn't it be done? I don't know.
I don't either. I will ask Sheila to ask a reflexologist. Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, I wonder about some people have multiple piercings all over their body, and you
Yeah.
have to wonder what the effects of that might be. Like you've got a G5 electrical grid near you, and if you start glowing,
Yeah, the glow in the dark teenager.
Okay, so this is reflexology, and we have more with Learn More, so you can take a look there. Ralph, what are you going to talk about?
Well, spinning off of reflexology, we also have, and most people will have heard of acupuncture, which you need a licensed acupuncturist to perform on you.
Yeah, sticking big needles in somebody else's body, yeah.
But in addition to that, there's also acupressure. Now, acupressure uses the same, and there actually are about 800 points on the body along the meridians and the chakras that can be pressed on with hands or sometimes tools by an acupressurist that can serve to relieve pain, reduce stress. So you've got these energy lines, and pressing on certain points of them helps people to feel better. Now, these potent points that they're called, they're sensitive to bioelectric impulses. And basically what happens is when they're stimulated, they release endorphins.
Okay.
So the pain is blocked and relieved, and the flow of oxygen and blood to the target areas is increased.
Okay, so acupressure, not
Yeah.
acupuncture. Okay.
Now,
This is probably something you could learn yourself, too. I mean, probably you could apply it depending upon, well, that map that you have is pretty
pretty
complex.
extensive,
Yeah,
yeah.
there are about 800 or so those pressure
points,
points.
yeah. The front of the body, the back of the body, the neck, down the spine, all the way down through the legs and into the feet. So it's connected in some sense to reflexology because the acupressurist would say, yes, there are places on the feet and the hands that are useful in acupressure.
Okay. Given all those points, this might be a technique that seems valuable, but it could be a technique that's going to take a while to learn, right?
I think so. I think
Okay.
you'd have to do some pretty serious study in acupressure before you were ready to go out and hang up your shingle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting things about that is there have been studies done both on acupuncture and acupressure that are double-blind studies, like Jim mentioned, and one of the studies for acupuncture used fake acupuncture. And you say, how can you use fake acupuncture? Well, basically, the real acupuncturist took a needle and inserted it into his skin on a particular place on the body. The fake acupuncturist used the same place, but a blunt needle, and didn't insert it. So he just touched that point.
Okay.
Okay?
So
And-
you got two things going on. You got the real deal, the real therapy, and then the pseudo therapy. Okay.
Right.
Now,
And the same thing was done with acupressure.
okay. Now, if it's the placebo effect, you'd expect that there'd probably be no difference, right?
Well, yeah, and there
Okay.
was a difference.
Uh-huh.
Now, the interesting thing is that they measured the difference, and what they found is that 12 weeks later, people who experienced relief of pain with the real thing were still experiencing relief of pain. But 52 weeks later, the pain was back.
Okay, so it didn't last for forever. It lasted for a while.
So it lasted for basically 3 months.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that you can say there was, well, yeah, I mean, if you take an aspirin today, you don't expect it to cure your headache 3 weeks from now
Or a year from now.
or
Sure.
a year from now. So there was no repeat treatment for this test.
Okay.
So, yeah, it lasts a goodly long time, 3 months, but not forever.
Okay. And this was with the acupressure.
With the acupressure, yeah.
Okay. So it's something to look into. One of the things we talked about in our last show was CBD oil. Well, I've got another one for you, Ralph.
Okay.
Emu oil.
Okay, emu oil.
You know what an emu is?
Well, I think it's kind of a giant bird similar to an ostrich.
Yeah. Think of a small ostrich.
Okay, small ostrich.
Yeah. Friends of ours have emus. They also, the reason we know these people, Sam and Wendy, is that they also have alpacas. And so we've gone up to visit their alpaca ranch. And last time we were there, he said, "Go, come and meet the emus." Okay. So we went, and there was a pen, and it appeared that there was nothing in the pen, but we made a little noise as we were walking up, and all of a sudden, about 40 of these giant birds came rushing toward us, and they're curious as all get out, and they're sort of funny looking in a cute kind of way. You know?
Okay.
So their feathers are wonderful. Occasionally they'll lose a feather, and we were given one of the emu feathers. They look a little bit like peacock feathers. You know, they're just gorgeous looking things. And so
What color are they?
they're kind of a black with iridescent, maybe a little bit of yellow at the tips.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very pretty. And the gal, and I said Sam and Wendy, it was actually Kathy. We get our alpaca moms and dads mixed up sometimes. Said, yeah, emu oil is being used a lot like CBD oil. CBD oil is a vegetable. Emu oil comes from animals. So I naively said, and how do you get the oil?
How do you extract the oil from the emu?
Yes. Well, you have to kill the emu, pluck all these beautiful feathers off, and the oil is in fat underneath the skin, and that has to come off too. I said, then what do you do with the rest of the emu? And Kathy said, oh, they're delicious.
Okay.
All right. So
A whole new concept, the emu burger.
Indeed. So emu oil therapy is relatively new. It's kind of like pectin therapy, relatively new. Pectin is that stuff that's in like Cerdo. People are using it now to make jams. We're using it around our house to make jams and jellies. Well, that's a new thing also. And both of them have the emu oil therapy and the pectin therapy have the same intake. You ingest it, you essentially eat the oil or the pectin. And again, we don't have a lot of research, but the anecdotal research says it helps with things like inflammations and boosts the immune system and helps with the treatment of pain, including headaches, painful coughs, skin and hair conditions, It can be used with insect bites. I mean, so we're getting more things that people are using or talking about rather than the sledgehammer medicals that
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
had for quite a while.
And, one of the things, Jim, that this is kind of an aside, but um, I just saw a news report on the southern border where we're having so much problem with the cartels sending people across with fentanyl.
Yeah,
And one of the things that they're sending across now is bags of what appear to be hard candies, the kind of things that you see at Christmas and maybe Halloween and Valentine's Day, the little hard candies in multicolors,
yeah.
and they're laced with fentanyl.
Oh dear.
And their target is children, young people.
Interesting.
So, one of the things that we know is that the conventional medical use of drug therapies can have very harmful spin-offs.
And candy laced with fentanyl directed to little kids probably is not a good thing.
No.
Ralph, we've been going here for about 22 minutes, and we haven't gotten to the macrobiotic dieting. And, you and I wrote a book called Protecting Your Family's Health. And we haven't really talked about the use of nutrition as a way of enhancing health and pain management. So let's save that one for next week. We'll devote the entire session to it, and then we'll also offer our listeners an opportunity to get a copy of the book. Okay?
Okay, sure thing. One of the things that just as a sort of a prequel to next week's thing is we talk in the book a lot about the Mediterranean way of eating and the mind diet, which is not really a diet, but we don't talk specifically using the word macrobiotic. And we'll talk about what that means and what's different about the macrobiotic dieting than the others.
Okay. Well, until next time then, this is Jim
And Rolf,
saying keep your stick on the ice
because we're all in this
together.